So we're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of time tracking, also known as who has time to track time, right? But first, a little bit about me. If you don't know me, my name is Nenad Andrićek. I was born in Serbia, but I live in Budapest. Actually, I've been living here for the most of my life. I've been married for 12 years. We have a 6-year-old daughter with my wife. And I started in the localization industry 23 years ago, even though my education is business and informatics. I kind of always liked languages and kind of stick with that. Uh, Out of those 23 years, many of those were in IBM, so corporate world, and then we started AGE Translation in 2006. AGE is a single language vendor for working mostly for MLVs. Our three main languages are Hungarian, Serbian, and Croatian. And then in 2017, I started a mini TPMS, which is basically a business management system for companies that deal with continuous localization. Apart from that, I like to play chess. I do make barbecue whenever I can, and I waste my time on TV shows. Netflix and HBO is like always on, and of course, hanging out with you guys from the industry because you are the best. I think this is really an amazing industry. So let's get it on and see how do we measure time, and is it relevant at all if we have to measure time. Funny story, I have a friend named Dragan. He's from Belgrade. I think he's back in Belgrade right now, but he was living here in Budapest, and he tracked time actually in beer. So he said, like, when he's making a goulash soup, it takes him like exactly 3 beers to make it perfect, and then he know he's done. So it's crazy, but if you know your pace, it can be really accurate, right? So let's see how long is, for example, 5 minutes long. If you take the universe, right? The universe is pretty old, so in universe, 5 minutes is nothing. If you're on vacation, especially in the early days of your vacation, 5 minutes is close to nothing. If it's Wednesday and it's like 4:55 p.m., it could like look like a lifetime. So you cannot wait to the day to end, and you want to just go and grab that one of those beers with Dragon. If you're a female mayfly, that's literally a lifetime. These creatures or these insects actually spend 1 year as a larva, or under the ground, and then they go out and they literally live like 5 minutes long. And of course, if you really, really need to pee, then 5 minutes is a major catastrophe. Time is also culturally biased. So, in Japan, being 1 minute late is like totally unacceptable. Then again, in Spain, being 30 minutes late is kind of a social norm. So if you come early, you're crazy or something. And in Greece, the timetables, the schedules are more like guidelines. So there's, at least this is what what I heard. They say like something will happen around noon. The bus will maybe start later, maybe earlier. Things happen. And of course, time heavily depends on your boss. Let me give you an example. So your boss goes like, "Get into my office now," right? No matter how important it is what you're doing, you have to drop it. You have to go into your boss's office. But not only your work boss is your boss, right? So your wife, maybe, or my wife says to me, "Bring flowers so I can make pancakes." And I'm like, "Honey, okay, but I have a deadline. I have to finish this." And then all hell breaks loose. You want your kid to starve to death? What kind of a monster are you? So the boss of your time is actually the one with the power. And this is a true story. Again, happened to my friend Damir, uh, probably like 20 years ago, in Pakistan. They were traveling from point A to point B, uh, and the bus took kind of a pause, or they stopped in the middle, and then they were supposed to go further. Passengers were anxious to go, and they went to the bus driver and said, like, your bus was supposed to get back en route 20 minutes ago. And the bus driver said, well, you guys start and we'll catch up with you. There's nothing much that you can do about that unless you know how to drive a bus. But let's get a little bit more serious and see how much and what does time mean in localization. So for us in our company, uh, during the years, we realized that respecting the deadlines means a lot. So respect the deadlines, or you are dead. And we have clients who are penalizing or even refusing payments if you're late for a day, or even for a couple of hours. This is most probably, in my opinion, due to huge influence from the United States, where of course most of the big corporations are, most of the big customers come from USA, and as we know, they're always in rush. They are the culture that values their time the most. And during the years, of course, we learned that there are limits and rules uh, in localization that are very closely connected to time, which loosely translates to the customer cannot wait with their $25 million launch of a new application or a web page or anything else, because one translator for one language cannot find that one perfect sentence. So the machinery, as we call it, or LSP companies such as ours, we need to be organized and we need to be prepared, because a lot of stuff can go wrong. And what can go wrong? Well, we're people, we tend to leave stuff for the last moment. So I don't know about your experience, but ours is, if we have a deadline, let's say on next Thursday at 5 p.m., and we send something to translation with a deadline of next Thursday at 4 p.m., it will most probably be done at 3:55 p.m. So that's a excuse me, that's a kind of tricky way to do business. We're also delegating at the very last moment. At least I caught myself sometimes, like uh, there are projects that I like to be involved in and I like to do them, and I always think like, yeah, I will manage this, I will make it happen, etc. And then I realized that 2 days have passed and I completely forgot about it, and then I have to uh, go and ask for my people to jump in and help me pretty much. Save my ass. Sorry, ass. Sorry for the French, pardon my French. And what is the most interesting for me is that we tend to misjudge the actual time needed for the actions we need, for the tasks that we are supposed to do. And this is very very interesting, because professionals usually say less uh, than the actual time that is needed, and those who are, I don't want to say amateurs, but those who are kind of a little bit insecure, they usually say more, that they need more time to perform some task. So what we like to do is not just track time, but track responses for them. I call this Joe responses, and I figured there is a like a constant called Joe constant, which means that if one of your colleagues always says like, I need 3 hours to do this, and it's always 4 hours, then his constant is like 33%, right? So you just, every time that they say something, you multiply it by that response, and you have a very good indicator of how much time is actually needed, and not just don't rely on her say. But why bother at all? I mean, it's kind of the big question. So do we really need to track time? And I think yes, because time tracking will help you understand your productivity. It will help you increase your efficiency, and it will get you some improvement ideas. So before we go into that, one of the like brightest moments of or darkest moments of my life was when I realized that ASAP doesn't mean right now. It means as soon as possible. So you know you don't need to rush like a maniac. There's still time for you to grab that coffee and then plan your actions, prepare for them, and then execute them. Let's look now at the good and the bad and the ugly of time tracking. So the good thing is if you measure time and you know we are selling, we are all you most of us I think we are selling services by projects, uh, which means that we need to calculate our cost based on the on a project and not on days or whatever, but time spent on that project is very important to measure. And this is, for me at least, this is the best part of it, that I can uh, put that cost relates in relation to an actual project and know exactly how much money I'm making or how much money I'm losing. This is why Istvan asked if you are losing money on some projects or not. But what's bad with time tracking? So you can have too many details. So, like the king of micromanagement and asking for every minute to be accounted for. People will go just nuts, and they will use more time to track time, as I said in the beginning, create something than to create something which is useful. Then again, you can go too low on details. Uh, and a friend of mine told me that he was helping a storage warehouse with a software that tracked time for them. And it turns out that the people who were working there were cleaning 35% of the time during business hours. Obviously, this is completely nuts. So the management went back to my friend and asked to help, like to figure out what's going on. And they realized that there was no time to I'm sorry, there was no place to put different uh, time tracking like activities. For example, there were coffee breaks, bathroom breaks, calls from clients or calls from management, etc. They literally had like three or four categories in which they could put some time. And of course, for everything else they used like cleaning, because that was the most neutral one. So measuring useless things is pretty bad. It demoralizes your team, and it also creates trust issues because, well, we're people, and they will always ask like, why do you need that information? Why do you care? So what did I go wrong? So there goes the ugly, and the ugly part is that you know it time tracking needs input from people actually, and some people will always hate it. Now this could be mitigated with some interesting things, like not penalizing the people for telling you the truth, because this is not what you're not on a witch hunt. You're just trying to get your business on track and know it better. So if they go for a 2 hour coffee break, which is not unusual, then just let them put it, and with no repercussions. And of course, it needs persistence, and 3 days of tracking time is probably not enough. You need 3 months or something to make it normal. So we go to the why, right? And it's not to give 10 times more work to your colleagues, except for people who really need that, but rather to understand the places where you can improve, where when you can cut down on idle time, or on time that's spent in a bad way, and grow your company, of course, even more, because this is the ultimate goal for everybody, right? So how do you track time? I'm going to share two um, tools that I use. Actually, the first one is Toggle, and this is This is the one that I use the most, and I really like it because it's very easy to use. I started maybe maybe 2.5 months ago, and it already can show me some interesting data. You can do reporting. It sends you reports every, I think, Sunday evening for the week that has passed. Even the free plan is pretty good, very useful. And if you want to integrate it with some other tools that you use, it has like over 100 integration. And just a couple of days ago, I got a mail that they have some auto tracking abilities. I didn't have time to test it out yet, so I cannot tell you how that works, but it's definitely worth a try if you want to track your time. So go to toggl.com and make sure that you pick Toggle Track, because they have actually three applications. Not only this one, and the other one is Timely. It's from memory.ai, which is very interesting because it works automatically. You just have to install the Timely application, and then it starts tracking everything that you do on your computer. But as I wrote down, it's not for the paranoid types because it requires screen recording ability to literally every application that you use. So, email, PowerPoint, whatever, Google Docs, web, everything, it shows you uh, what you have been doing. And then you can define your own criteria, what you actually want to put in the report, that it shows either to you or to your manager, or you can both of these tools can be used for bigger teams. I didn't start to use it with my team yet, but I do plan some kind of experiment with Toggle. But let's go a little bit into the numbers right now, because I think this is the fun part, and this is the part when you get to really understand what's going on with time and your people working for you or people working with you. So if we get we're going to calculate project management cost per hour here, and for the sake of simplicity, we're going to use an 8-hour day, a 20 days month, and 12 months a year, which equals to 240 days and 1,920 hours of work. So if your PM cost is 40k euros per year, that equals to 20.83 euros per hour for a project manager. But we kind of need to deduct some stuff, because that calculation is not totally accurate. So we have to deduct 10 days because of national holidays, Christmas, New Year's Eve, etc. Another 10 days for sick leave, unless you're working with a robot, which would be maybe better, but also very boring. Then we have approximately 25 days. It varies, but I took some median. So 25 days of paid vacation and 5 days of personal days, when people go and just have to pick their kid from the school earlier, or they have to, I don't know, renew their driver's license, etc. So that's a total of 59 days less, which equals to 181 working day a year, and equals to 1,448 hours only, which means with the 40,000 cost a year, it immediately goes 32% more, and it's 27.62 euros per hour, uh, as opposed to the 20.8 that we had before. So it's not a small increase, and this is regardless if you have 30 words project or 300,000 words project. Hourly, every project needs some time to process. So you just try to use the time wisely. So what is the next move that we can do, right? First of all, what I did, I calculated my own time, like how much is my time worth. I was not happy. I either, so it looks like I either work too much or I'm too cheap. So something has to change. Something has to change. But what you can do in real life is assign PM time by customer type. And this is a whole new topic on its own, so I didn't want to go too deep into this. Let me just say that you can create a calculation where you have different customer types, and based on those types, you will know approximately how much time your project managers are spending for each new project from that type of customer, and then where you can project these to their productivity, and you can have on after a couple of projects you can have a much better insight on what what is the actual cost for that one project, and you might realize that you are actually losing money on some customers, and then you can increase the price you charge, of course, or you ditch those customers, or you introduce minimum charge. Now we are we are working with MLVs, so the possibility of increasing prices and minimum charge, etc., is not really on the table all the time. It is possible, but it's not that easy. And maybe it's utopia, but you can actually work on that to lose the customers that are losing you money, and try to serve those which are better for you, which make you money, and make your team also happier. So what kind of improvement did we do? For starters, we realized that data entry is one of the most like time vampires in our industry. So this is why we started Mini TPMS as our own development, to like make data entry minimum. Then, of course, here we have Istvan, who can help automate project creation. And then we have other tools that can automate project distribution and maybe decision making even. So which people to use, what workflows, sorry, what workflows to use, what will be the quality assurance system that you want to use, etc. And for all of these, of course, you are using probably machine learning, or as we like to use fancy words, it's maybe artificial intelligence and automation combined. And of course, track and measure everything, because what you cannot measure, you cannot control. And that's it for me for now. I want to thank you for listening, and now we have Istvan back on track to show you what he came up with.
Thank you, Nenad. This has been excellent. And I am one of those people that hate to manually start tracking time. I tried to install Toggle myself, and then it was asking me to categorize everything and put my memories in, and so on and so forth. And maybe you could go to the next slide, please. And what I was wondering is like why people are looking to track time, and how is that specific to our industry, where we are working a lot of times on very small things. I mean, I'm also working as a consultant where I have to take care of tracking hours. I need to take care of hours. I mean, the minimum I can do is a 15-minute thing. If I'm doing 5 minutes with anybody, I am not taking care of that. But sometimes some of these projects that you receive in this industry, they are all together. They should be done in 10 minutes with more than one person included. So what I was wondering is whether the small things in tracking time cause a bigger problem than the big items that take longer time. And even though only James and Nicholas have answer the question why you want to track the time. Now also Michal. I think it's interesting to know that time is money, and that Nicola wanted to track the time to calculate the words per hour, to consider the productivity as criteria for translation selection, and also use time instead of or together with the edit distance to pay the translators. Whereas with Michal, it's been the cost of processing a task, the PM cost per project, per account, per client, understanding the PM cost. And then thinking about it, what are the typical uses? I mean, there are two things. One is the profitability. One is like, how much do I have to spend on a unit in terms of time, which I cannot attribute otherwise. We've seen 1,500 hours, more or less 1,448, I think, a year. As this is the number of hours that you can distribute. And like we're talking about an hourly cost of 27 euros, more or less, when it's a 40,000 yearly total cost. And obviously, don't forget that there is salary and there is taxes on it. And then there's also another thing which we can use is to provide assistance. So when you've got, for example, in-house translators, how can you best schedule their work? How can you really understand what they say is a real number and they are really able to process it? But also, when you have, for example, an in-house translator, is there any type of a job that takes significantly more? Is there any kind of metadata of a job that you can relate something, some time factor as well? So how many words do I translate in an hour? How many words do I post edit in an hour? If you are using, for example, a different service, or how much time do I spend in a project managing it in mini TPMS, in XTRF, in whatever? Does it matter which tool I'm using? Can I save time if I change the workflow? I need to be able to check that. Can I learn from all these insights without having to click on start and stop? And this is what I was thinking, because basically what we have to do at BeLazy is, like, we are doing some automation. We need to provide a return on investment calculation. And the return on investment calculation is about measuring time, more or less. On the other hand, how can I provide you a meaningful return on investment calculation if you are not measuring your time and your values cannot be substituted in the formula that we come up with? So we definitely need some help. And what I'd like to show you is a little experiment. When we scheduled this webinar, we were not sure whether this experiment would work, and I've got good news, it does. And what I'm going to show you is how to set up BeLazy to help you with understanding how much time you are going to spend on projects. So if you could move on to the next slide, and from now on it's going to be easy, 22 minutes of delight coming. Could you start the video, please? So what we're going to do is, BeLazy is a system that is able to have multiple connections. So it's connecting to multiple systems. And there is a very good thing that we need to understand, that a lot of the tools today are browser-based. And there is a possibility to look at an identifier of a project in the browser, in the URL, and based on that, relate the information such as word count to the information such as time count. And what BeLazy does is that it's able to automate not only one type of translation management system or vendor portal, but multiple types of that. And thus, it's able to relate the actual information of how much time you spend in these applications to multiple different URLs. And maybe that is something that you would need to do. And what you see here is nothing else. I'm just setting up a memo queue connection. I am setting up a localized connection. Don't worry about the video, because what we are doing is just setting up the connection here. And I hope that you will be able to see the rest very soon. If not, then I can show it full screen on my screen. That is an option as well. So it's all set up now, and you don't even have to do this with a real system. So if you're a translator, for example, or anybody, what I'm showing you here, this is something that's available free of charge today. So you just go into the system and you just set it up. We are only interested in getting the list of projects to approve. So what happens here is approvals pending. You can see that there are some projects appearing. And now we are going to get pretty technical after this. So you can see here that I see the projects coming from the Plunet vendor portal, from Localize, from MemoQ, and I can see the volume, which is quite an important thing. And that is going to be related to the actual time spent. Now, the next thing we need to do is just create an API access token. We will post this video, so you don't have to take notes. You will be able to do this later. You just take out the access token, and we are going to configure a middleware tool, which is called Integromat, in order to put this information into a Google Sheet. If you can go on to the next slide with the next video, please. That could be great. Next video. So next slide. Very good. So what we are doing now is we just create a Google Sheet. What do I have to have in a Google Sheet? Like, what's the connection? What is the type of system I'm using? Who is the end customer? Maybe interesting. What's the project? The weighted word count, because we have the assumption that that relates to the time. The price, maybe it is important, maybe it's not important. And what's very important is that we put here the URL and we put here the time spent. You could also put here, for example, the service, whether something is post-editing or whether it's translation or review. I didn't put it here, but that's another option that you can do. So I just set up a new Google Sheet, and I will have two sheets to it. One is called BeLazy Info. This is going to be the information that comes from BeLazy. And I add another sheet, which is going to include information that comes from time tracking, timesheet info. And that's it. And let's move to the next video. We've got this productivity sheet that we are going to use to understand more. So this is going to be a little bit more complicated here. I am in a tool called Integromat, which is something like Zapier. You can use anything you want that is able to handle APIs. And what we are going to do right now is use one BeLazy API. This may sound daunting, but it's not super daunting, actually. If I can do it, you can do it. And we are going to integrate that with Google Sheets. So I just selected the HTTP module and I make a request from here. And there is the BeLazy API description, which is online. And under the list opportunities call, I just need to copy out what you see the URL on the right side, which says API opportunities v1. So I just copied that in here, fairly easy. The next thing I need to do is go back and get this access token that I generated earlier and add the header, which is authorization API key and the access token. And I'm doing this because I want it to fill the Google Sheet. I select the body type and I click parse response. As simple as that. Look at that. I just set up this. And you are going to see very soon that if you look at the data that came from the system under data, under output data, you've got all these opportunities available and listed here. This is from MemoQ. This is an accepted one. There's one from the Plunet vendor portal. So all this information, all these projects that appeared on the BeLazy interface are now also appearing here. It's more than one project. Therefore, we have to do a little bit of a technical thing, which is called an iterator, which means if I got 20 responses in one go, I would like to split it up into 20 different lines in Google Sheet. And I would like to split up this array that is in the data opportunities. Now, the next thing I need to do is add a row to Google Sheet. It's as simple as that. There is a module, and I just select my sheet. I'm selecting it right now. It's called productivity. I'm sorry, I cut it here because I saw a lot of internal data. The BeLazy info sheet is where I want to write. And look, the values, you can see connection was the first column. So what I need to do is take from the iterator, take the name of the connection first. Then take the end customer. The end customer is represented in BLazy as end customer, but with lower caps. This is the project. Which project identifier am I going to use? Now I'm telling you, I'm going to use the name of the project. So how it is named in my system. And then comes weighted words, because that's very interesting. That's under pricing. You can see under pricing items, weighted quantity. And then the price, again, under pricing, it's going to be. And there is the total price. I mean, there will be 0 here because this was test data. And finally, there is the URL, which is super important to include here. But I also can add the currency next to the total price. So in the same field, I added the price, a space, and the currency. And now comes the URL, which is what is the URL that the translator or the project manager needs to log into. And that's also included in the BLazy response as link, as simple as link. And time spent, that's going to come from the other sheet. So we are not adding anything there. Okay. And now you can see that we've got this sheet, and we hope that the Integromat integration is going to start filling this with everything that I've got. And look, I started. And what's going to happen? It's not me typing. This is actually automatically being filled in by the integration. So as you go, all these information from the system, the project name, the client, if it was there, the weighted word count, and the URL, this is being filled automatically. And we've got 20 lines. That was the number of opportunities in BLazy. And we can make it work automatically. We can actually turn on the scheduling. I gave it a name. I can turn on the scheduling, and every time there is a new project appearing in BLazy, that gets into the productivity sheet on my Google Sheet, which is great. That's what I'm looking for. So here I am in this, and now I don't know how many of you are familiar with regular expressions. Lovely. What you will see is that Plunet was not friendly. Plunet did not give me any URL, so this experiment is not working for Plunet. But both localize and MemoQ have some kind of an identifier. You see under applocalize.com/project/ and there is a long number. And in MemoQ, it is like mimesis memoq.com BLazy test PM projects, and there is a long number before overview. What I'd like to do is extract this information about the number. I can look for the exact same URL, but maybe for some reason the URL is a little bit different, or maybe when you are editing that project, the URL is different from translating that project. And you would like to understand how much time you spent on this project in total. Not on this field, not on this tab, but the entire project. So this is why I am extracting it into a regular expression. You see that there is a regex extract function, and that's what I'm using. This is the pattern that I'm looking for. So everything after projects. So there can be everything, and then there is /project/, and I want that part. That's why I put it into parentheses. Dot asterisk. This is something that you will see. I mean, if you just copy out what I was doing here, you're going to get the right response. I mean, this way you can extract strings or extract a part between two slashes, which is normally what you want to extract from here. Don't ask me why this is green, because I have no idea. But what you can see is that I managed to extract the relevant information, both for MemoQ and for localize, from the URL. And this was the most technical of all the videos. And I'm not sure if there is anything more. Yeah. What you also may want to do is, for example, localize also has a task identifier, which if you like, you can extract. Otherwise, in localize, this is the project, which is my customer's project identifier. If you want, you can also extract the task identifier, and that's what I'm doing here. So how do I take it out from this string? I'm looking for the end of it. and I'm looking to set up a rule which is looking for everything that's dot asterisk. And what else? I need to look at it. I can't just do it in the blind. So it's going under, you see, what we are seeing is that there is an ampersand filter equals task. So I am extracting it all, then equals task underscore, and then I want that number. Then I want it up to the end of the string, and that is what I just indicated here. I had to put a backslash because of the equation. That's if I put an equation mark, I need to put a backslash. And it actually showed true because I messed up the function. I need to use regex extract. Regex match is only telling me if it exists or not. And with regex extract, I have also extracted this thing here. So don't give up yet, because we are getting there very soon. This was the preparation. And this is something that most of it you only need to do once. So let's move to the next slide, please, the next video. And I'm curious how many people I lost, only 3 so far. So the next one is, no, not this one. If you could move to the next slide, please. We are doing it again. Time your web. This is a tool that I really liked. It's not Toggle, it's not a big tool. It's really ugly. But on the other hand, it's a free tool that you can install. It's a browser extension in Google Chrome that is able to show you the charts, like where you have used your time. But what is most important for us is that it's able to give you a report in CSV format about all the sites you visited, how much time you spend there actively, how many minutes, and how much time you spend there inactively. So it's in the background, there is nothing you need to do, absolutely working automatically. So not for the paranoids either, even though it doesn't work in the private windows, which is probably good. And you can just click on download that CSV. This has been collected automatically. You can see that I spend most of my time in Google Docs and then on GitLab, where we manage the BeLazy development. And then it just downloads this CSV file. Very simple thing. On the next slide, please. We're going to import the contents of this CSV file into Google Sheet. You remember that I created 2 sheets. One was the BeLazy info and the second was the timesheet info. This is fairly simple. Probably all of you have done it before. You just need to import, file import, and upload it. And then you drag the file there. It's uploading. And I prefer, honestly, Google Sheet to Excel, though I don't know the online Excel version, but it's more intuitive. I'm replacing the current sheet because this is where I want to import that, and detect the separator and the conversion automatically. Ta-ta! I've got this beautiful URL, time spent, where did I go, where did I spend my time, also the name of the page imported into Google Sheet. What I'm trying to do is from this URL, match this URL now against the URLs from BeLazy. And that way I will know on which project, for which client, I have spent this much time. So if you could go to the next slide, please. And this is not the next slide yet. Yes, and this is the final one. Get the results. So in BeLazy, you can see these word counts, which have been transferred by the integration to productivity. And now from BeLazy, you can directly open these projects. I mean, what matters is that you open the projects from somewhere. If they are in your business management system, perfectly fine. There is no problem. I am creating a bit of results in Time Your Web because I want to show you that it's going to import certain numbers and it's going to relate these numbers to the right projects. So pay attention to which projects we are in right now. And you can see how I work. This is what a translator or project manager does. No rocket science here. I'm waiting for the document to load. I do some translation. I'm spending some time there. I'm opening up also localize. So these are the seconds that are going to be counted in the report in Excel. So I'm opening up localize now. This is very normal project management or translation job. And in the background, this time your web is working. So I'm spending a little time machine translating Latvian. Nothing better to do when I'm doing this. And a bit of French as well. And we are getting to the end of this very soon. So we will have some information about this demo project, the Be Lazy demo project, like how much time we have spent there. Now, please move on to the last slide, which is getting everything together. So now, in this productivity sheet, which I obviously downloaded into CSV and imported again, I can see, for example, all those URLs for memo queue. And I can see here some more information about document names. And I can see together, like basically everything. Memo queue, I can see localize. You can also see what I was looking for. These are just the sign-in for localize. And yeah, this is the app, the project management interface. And you can see that 88 seconds is what I spent on this task in localize. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just a fairly simple thing. I'm going to edit the field time spent. And in this time spent, I'm going to use, before I do that, I'm going to extract the same thing from these URLs as I extracted from the original URLs in Be Lazy. I mean, this is not available there, which is not a problem. I just need to change my reference because these are the same URLs. I want to extract the same things just to have a summary, because originally I was doing it per page. That doesn't show as much as if you have a summary relating to a project. And what I want is the project identifier. You can see that there is one project identifier here, which I put into the column G. So the project identifier is the 68 whatever 89 in the end. Okay. The same thing as you find here, the same thing as you find in column H. So I'm going to use a sum if. The range is like I'm looking for this field in the column G where I just extracted this information. So in the entire column G, I'm looking for the content of what's on my Be Lazy info sheet, the project ID. I'm looking for that project ID. And if column G contains the same project ID as H6 on my Be Lazy info, the same sheet, then I want to sum up the time that I spent actively or inactively on a page. How you set up active or inactive, that's something which is up to you. You can say that you're only calculating the time you really spent actively on a page or both of them, or you can only do like, let's say a 50% on the inactive. I mean, there is no golden rule here because you don't know if the person is looking at something else, whether they are looking for the terminology or whether they are just doing a search because they're interested in reading the latest news. So that's a percentage. There is not much you can do. So what I'm doing is like, I am just summarizing the values here, and you see 0 on this project. There has not been any work, but on that project over there, there has been 88 seconds of work, and the weighted word count is 8 words, and the project name is this, and the end customer is this. And I think you already see the value in this, because what you can do is you can sort these. You can also have a constant. You can, for example, take the time spent and divide it by the number of weighted words. How much time did I spend to translate a single weighted word? Or something like this. there are many ways to do this. For example, if you are working on machine translation for one end customer and another, you can compare and create more or less a percentage in like how much time on here or here, which one is taking longer. I think that these are all quite interesting insights if you want to do that. And what I just wanted to show you here is that they are fairly simple to receive. So this is more or less the end of the story here. What you can see here is that not only for localize, but I was also able to retrieve this for memo queue, and I'm able to see like how much time has been spent. And you can add up, for example, you can ask all your coworkers to install this app, which is called Time Your Web. And if they send you the CSVs, you can just put one after the other, and you can sum up everything, because this is a sum if, and it's summarizing the work that was done on one project on a browser-based interface where there was an identifier. And the good news is that there is usually an identifier in most browser-based interfaces. What we didn't get the time for is to show you that it's not only the browser-based systems. Both very popular translation tools that are local, both Trados has an app and MemoQ has an app, and we sent it to you in a communication yesterday where you can find those. So we've got pretty much everything to get a good share of how you are spending time understandable. And that's pretty much it. If you could go to the last slide, please. There was also, Mikhaila was asking, like, how about the time tracking within XTRF? And yeah, that's a possibility, but obviously that's not going to look at your translation time. Also with this, you're actually able to track the time coming from XTRF. So even if you don't have the XTRF time tracker, with this approach, XTRF also has these URLs, unlike Plunet. And you're able to understand how much time you spent on one project versus another in XTRF if you're integrating that with your belazy instance. So what's happening is that we set up the initial thing. I mean, you don't have to have this always up to date, but actually the Integromat integration is always going to fill every project that it sees in belazy. And then if you have the right regexes in the right fields in the Google Sheet, it's working miraculously automatically. And time your web exports, you need to click for the export and import it, but that's all. A little bit of a preparation. You can also add a service. And what happens is that this is a method that I believe works. And I'm curious if anybody wants to test it, if anybody wants to do some experiments, because we are going to get a lot of insights from this. And what we try to create with belazy is a very sharing community. And some of you have been to the belazy activity room meetings, which are on the first Wednesday of every month, where we are comparing, we are benchmarking, we are understanding how project managers and translators work. And the more you can open up, I think the more insights we can get, and the better the industry will get in terms of transparency, because at the moment, there's a lot of trouble with not understanding. There is a lot of trouble with word count-based payments for times that are done internally. And that's something that I believe with the right tool set, you are able to address. So this is pretty much the end of what we wanted to talk about. And I'm just wondering if there is anybody who would like to say something or who would like to comment on something. And there were no questions. There was only the chat, which we have followed. Any last thoughts? And then if you could go to the last slide, which is the thank you slide. Oh, okay. None. Thank you, James, for joining. And then I hope to see you at another webinar. If you learned something, please feel free to talk about that. I mean, what we are trying to do is share things that may not be very directly related to Be Lazy, but which are interesting, I think, to know. And
we have one question Q&A section from Jeremy.
Oh, lovely. It's new. Jeremy,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, MemoQ has an app for tracking time. I meant the edit time feature, editing time feature, which is something that you can turn on in options. For automatic time tracking for desktop applications, I haven't found anything that could work without some integration. So what Nenad was showing, like memory.ai, that's actually tracking time, looking into the screens, but I'm not completely sure if, for example, if it does that in MemoQ, because I used it on a Mac and MemoQ doesn't run that. So that's something that you can try. This memory.ai probably can work. I don't think that Toggle has an integration with desktop applications.
I think we can check the new feature of Toggle, which is this auto auto tracking that I mentioned. What I have seen is that it should be working very similar to the memory AI, but I'm not sure because I really didn't have time to check it out. But memory AI records everything that you do, and it shows it pretty accurately. So even for this webinar, it would show that we are on Zoom for 1 hour.
And we are over time, right?
No, we're still on time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nenad, for all these insights that you have given us. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And thanks, everybody, for joining today.
Thank you, Istvan, for having me. And thanks, everybody, also for joining us.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.